Have you ever wondered what would happen if you took one of Fate's most cute and bubbly characters and hit them with a splash of some Devil May Cry style edginess? Well, if Nero's any indication, you might just get perfection. Hello everyone, Soberoni of G&A Reviews here, bringing you a spotlight for the one servant guaranteed to make you a certified beast tamer, Draco. We'll be examining her stats and skills, as well as going over pointers on how to utilize her effectively, and an overall grade comparing her to how she stacks up to the other 5-star servants. So if you're ready to receive the mark of the beast, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and ring my bell so you can catch all of these spotlight videos as they go up, and you can help out the channel. And now, on to Draco's stats. Draco has a max HP of 13,160 and a max attack of 12,712. Draco's attack stat is insanely high even for an SSR servant and ranks among the top 10 in the entire game. Her HP, however, is mediocre. When it comes to her command cards, she has 5 hits on her quick card, 4 hits on her arts, 3 hits on her buster, and 5 hits on her extra card. She has an NP gain rate of 0.57% and a star rate of 10.2%. Both Draco's NP gain and star generating are on the low end of the spectrum, and they're somewhat inconsistent due to the nature of her triple buster card deck. Despite that though, Draco has a really powerful offensive stat spread. Taking a look at her skills, Draco's first skill is Number of the Beast rank C. This skill charges her own NP gauge every turn for 6 turns between 5 and 10%, increases her crit damage between 20 and 30%, and reduces the damage taken between 500 and 1000, all of these effects depending on level. Her second skill is Aria Peculum, Golden Grail rank C. This skill will skill seal all enemies for 1 turn, as well as inflict burn on them, damaging them between 3000 and 5000 per turn. It'll also increase Draco's attack between 20 and 40%, both of these effects depending on level, and it will grant her the Holding Holy Grail status for 3 turns. However, as a demerit, it will increase the NP charge of all enemies by 1. And finally, Draco's last skill is 7 Beast Crowns rank C. This skill increases her own buff removal resistance by 100% for 1 time, lasting for 3 turns, and if Draco has the Holding Holy Grail status, then she will also get between a 20 and 40% buff against Dragon and Roman enemies for 3 turns, generate between 5 and 10 crit stars per turn, grant herself debuff immunity, grant herself ignore defense, increase her own healing received between 10 and 20%, and charge her NP gauge every turn for 3 turns between 10 and 20%, all of these effects depending on level. Moving on to her passives, Draco has Authority of the Beast rank C, which increases her crit damage by 10%, Independent Manifestation rank E, which increases her crit damage, instant kill resistance, and mental debuff resistance all by 2%, and Negamaziah rank EX, which increases her debuff success rate by 500%. Draco's Noble Phantasm is Babylon Domos Aria, which is a single target art attack that deals damage to 1 enemy with a damage modifier between 900 and 1500% depending on NP level. It also deals additional damage to any of the 7 Knight servants, which includes all the normal class servants, between 150 and 200% depending on overcharge. Beasts are very mat heavy when it comes to Ascension mat requirements. For level Ascension, Draco is going to need 10 each of Dragon Fangs, Void Dust, Snake Jewels, Black Tallow, Bloodstone Tears, Hearts of a Foreign God, Gallstones, and Reverse Dragon Scales. While for her skills, she's going to need 10 Dragon Fangs, 10 Octuplet Crystals, 12 Phoenix Plumes, 12 Homunculus Babies, 12 Snake Jewels, 15 Hearts of a Foreign God, 15 Gallstones, and 15 Reverse Dragon Scales per skill. Someone needs to tell Nasu to cancel every upcoming Grail War because we've reached the root. We've obtained perfection, and her name is Draco. I've been waiting to make this spotlight for years, and we're finally here. As this fandom's biggest Nero sim, I cannot overstate my excitement at the upcoming release of Draco. In fact, I love Nero so much that I only use Ascensions 1 and 2 for Draco. I'm not some coward who hides behind Ascension 3. My Empress's body is meant to be appreciated after all. Still though, I will try and be as impartial and unbiased as possible for the sake of you guys watching. If I can give Summer Abbey a C, I'm certain I can give a fair review to Draco. Starting off with her stats, they are heavily offensively leaning. She has one of the highest attack stats in the game, and honestly, her HP isn't that bad. Usually servants with attack this high have an HP stat below 13,000, sometimes even below 12,000, so by comparison, Draco has some decent HP. Her NP gain and star generating are a bit lacking, but her skills more than make up for that. Number of the Beast provides Draco with a 10% NP charge each turn, as well as a 30% crit buff and a nice damage reduction. The numbers on the skill may seem low, but that's only until you realize how long these buffs last. This skill lasts for a full 6 turns and only has a 7-turn cooldown. So for all intents and purposes, Number of the Beast has a near 100% uptime for Draco, making all of these buffs semi-permanent. Draco just gets a free 10% NP charge every turn and has a 1000 HP built-in damage reduction, which when combined with her class advantage is insanely strong. As a beast servant, Draco takes half damage from every normal class, aka sabers, archers, lancers, riders, assassins, and casters. This gives her survivability on par with rulers, but unlike rulers, she also has pseudo class advantage against those same classes as well, making her incredibly powerful offensively too. In that sense, Draco basically combines the defensive power of rulers with the offensive power of berserkers, making her both extremely tanky and incredibly powerful with no real downside. To further capitalize on her extremely OP class, Draco has a powerful offensive steroid in Golden Grail. This skill buffs her attack by 40% for 3 turns, burns all enemies, seals their skills, and grants her the Holding the Grail status. 40% attack up is huge, especially since it lasts a full 3 turns. It just enables Draco to hit even harder, especially with her NP. The skill seal is great because it will always land thanks to Draco's passive, as well as the burn, which is much stronger than a normal burn, dealing 5000 damage per turn. The skill does come with a demerit of charging an enemy's NP gauge though, which is not insignificant, so do be careful when you use this skill. As for the Holding the Grail status, well, that ties into Draco's last skill, 7 Beast Crowns. This skill gives Draco buff removal resistance, but if she has Holding the Grail status, then this skill will also grant her 40% bonus damage against dragon and Roman enemies, 10 crit stars a turn, debuff immunity, ignore defense, 20% increased healing, and an additional 20% NP charge every turn. Yeah, that's a lot of effects. You want to make sure that you always use Draco's second skill before you use this one so that you can get all of those buffs, because otherwise the skill is pretty bad. But with those additional buffs, Draco basically gets insane NP charge and star generating every turn, 30% total charge when combined with her first skill, a lot more survivability, and some situational damage buffs. Overall, make sure that you prioritize leveling her NP charge first, both her first and her third skills, and then her second skill last. But honestly, Draco's one of those servants where you really need all of her skills maxed out to fully utilize her kit, since they all synergize with each other and play off each other's cooldowns. So try to level her skills simultaneously if you can. For her pen skills, go with mana loading, and then skill reloading, and then crit damage. Or you can take crit damage second before skill reloading if you really want to go for a crit build. Draco's NP is as straightforward as an NP can get. It's a single target arts attack that only has one effect. It deals bonus damage against the 7 Knight Servants, aka the 7 main classes. Basically, as is befitting of her lore, Draco is built to absolutely annihilate regular servants. The 150% bonus damage combined with her class advantage over all of the normal classes means that she deals unworldly amounts of damage to any servant who isn't in an extra class. And God help them if they also happen to be Roman or have the dragon trait, because then Draco is blasting them out of existence with her damage modifiers. When it comes to single target burst damage, very few servants can even hold a candle to Draco, and when combined with her insane tankiness against normal class servants, she basically becomes a cheat code in many challenge quests and story fights. It also helps that Draco has an absurd amount of utility in her kit, ranging from AoE skill seal to debuff immunity to ignore defense. She's built from the ground up to be an absolute menace in any boss fight. She can even be useful in some very situational farming nodes if you're up against one enemy with a ton of HP, like some of those 90++ nodes do. Draco isn't purely unbeatable though. She does have a few drawbacks. For one thing, her damage is highly reliant on her NP. She needs to NP frequently in order to burst down enemy servants. Thankfully, her NP is easily loopable with Castoria though, thanks to its really high 8 hits and her constant 30% NP charge every turn. In that respect, Draco plays very similarly to Squirtoria or Vlad, where she wants to constantly be spamming out her NP almost every turn. The other major issue that Draco has is that her power only extends to the original 7 classes. She's all but useless against any extra class enemies, since they not only deal double damage against her, but Draco also loses access to her most powerful buffs against them. So when the meta shifts toward extra class enemies, that can seriously hamper Draco's effectiveness, which it does do later on next year. And to a lesser extent, Draco's mixed deck can also be an issue. Triple buster cards but an arts NP can be very frustrating to work around, since you're going to want to be using her primarily in arts teams. And speaking of teams, Draco is a very self-sufficient servant, so generally speaking, she has some flexibility in that department. Castoria is the ideal teammate for her just because she enables Draco to loop so much easier and more consistently, but in longer fights, Tamamo and Proto Merlin can also be great for their healing, cooldown reduction, and strong buffs. And on the free-to-play side, you can even use Asclepius, as he's an excellent partner providing NP charge, healing, buffs, and hard defense for Draco. But if you don't have him, Paracelsus can work as well. It's worth mentioning that you can also use a gimmick team with George or the 5-star Romulus, since they can easily apply Dragon or Roman traits onto the enemy to proc Draco's buffs. Draco's bond CE is Astus Estus, which increases her NP damage by 30% and grants her a special on-hit buff that has a 40% chance of further increasing her NP damage by 10% when she attacks while having the Holding Holy Grail status. This can actually be a good CE if you're doing a solo run with Draco, but for the most part I recommend more consistent sources of NP buffing like Black Grail, Flower Sunshine, or Song of the Cradle, which we get for free from the Lilim Harlot event. For command codes, Romance in the Spear is by far Draco's best option. It applies the Roman trait to enemies when you hit them, which allows Draco to proc her own anti-Roman buff and deals 40% additional damage to that target. It's an insanely strong command code for her, and it's a rare case where a command code works as a massive indirect buff to a servant. Overall, Draco is one of the best boss killers in all of FGO. Her class type is ridiculously unbalanced and broken, so much so that it's borderline meta-defining, and she is capable of dealing some of the highest single target damage in the game very easily. Her buffs apply to a wide range of servants that make up over 90% of the game, and she has a criminally strong kit specifically made for challenge quest content that trivializes many of the toughest fights in the game. But to be fair, she is near unusable against extra class enemies, which can be a big issue for her later on, seeing as how many events and story quests coming up next year will involve extra class enemies. Still though, the very fact that the entire meta needs to shift to extra class enemies just to indirectly nerf Draco just goes to show how insanely OP she actually is. So she gets an S from me. In any content against normal class enemies, which remember, still makes up the vast majority of the game, Draco is just a cheat code. She simultaneously is one of the most tanky and most offensively powerful servants in the game. And if you're a new player or you still haven't finished story, then Draco's probably the best servant you can ever pull for, because you can easily brute force your way through all of the content in the game just using her. And even for endgame players, anytime the meta shifts to non-extra class enemies, Draco will be an instant top 3 DPS in the game, which gives her incredible future proofing as well. And those are my thoughts on Draco. I know some people might disagree just because of how bad she is against extra class enemies, but unless Lysango vows to never make normal class servants again, Draco will always be relevant and meta defining just by the nature of her class, which to me means she's absolutely game breaking and thus S tier. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't be afraid to shower Nero with your love and umus while you're down there. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and consider subscribing if you really enjoyed the video. Join the party over our Discord, chill with us on Twitch, and follow us on Twitter, and I'll see you all in the next Servant Spotlight. Soberoni out. Later.